Hello and welcome to NTEP Politics, and today I'm going to be making my final midterm predictions. We're going to be doing both the Senate and the House, so we're going to start out with the safe states. You already know, we're actually not going to have, Washington actually isn't safe this time. We'll get to that soon. All of these safe, unfortunately, Maryland's safe. Illinois is going to be safe, could be likely, but I feel pretty good about the safe rating. Now for the safe R states. Idaho, Utah, Lee is going to win by about 18. Polls usually are historic for overestimating Mullen and independents. It's going to be an 18-point win for Mike Lee. Not a terrible margin, but not a terrible margin for Mullen, but that's what's going to happen. Iowa, Grassley is going to win by like 14. Des Moines Register has him up 12. It should be fine for him. And then we got Ohio. Vance has just been completely surging. He is up 10 in Trafalgar. Trafalgar underestimated Trump in Ohio, and all these polls underestimated Trump. Emerson even has Vance up 8. They had Biden winning Ohio. I think Vance is going to win by like 12 when everything is said and done. So that is all the safe states it looks like. Florida's also safe. The early vote just looks amazing for Republicans. In Florida, we're surging in all the polls. And also Alaska's safe just because of Murkowski versus Alaska and versus Shabaka. I do believe Murkowski has the edge in Alaska Senate. But that's going to be a competitive race. We're going to watch a lot. So that is all the safe states, 47 to 44. Now we're going to start with the likely Republican states. First, we got Wisconsin. Ron Johnson has been completely surging in the polls. He is up about 6 points in Data for Progress, which is a pretty Democrat poll. I think when everything is said and done, he's going to win by about 7 points in Wisconsin. The polls are very notorious for underestimating Republicans in Wisconsin, especially in the driftless area. I do believe Wisconsin is going to be a 7-point win for Ron Johnson when everything is said and done. Next, we got North Carolina. Bud is doing very well in the polls. He's up 6 in Trafalgar. Trafalgar's been 6.5 actually, and Trafalgar's been very accurate. I believe there was another poll that had Bud up 6 or something like that. Bud is doing very well. North Carolina is a very Republican state this election cycle, and it seems that Bud is going to do very well in the state of North Carolina. He's done a very good job campaigning. Beasley, not so much. The early voting looks pretty good for Republicans in North Carolina. I think with the independents breaking more Republican this time, the energy, Biden's disapproval, I think this is going to be a solid 8-point win for Bud when everything is said and done. Now for the likely Democrat states, we got Washington. I think Murray's going to win by about 8 points, 7 or 8. Smiley has been doing very well in her campaign. She has made this race a lot closer than it should be, but unfortunately it is Washington. I do not believe they're able to flip Washington, but Smiley doing very well, but she cannot win in Washington. That's the sad truth. Next, we got the state of Colorado. Actually, no, Colorado. I'm gonna put Colorado as leandy. Actually, O'Dea seems to be having a late surge. He's only down 1 in Trafalgar. I think Trafalgar overestimated Trump in Colorado in 2016. But to be fair, it is a red wave year now, and the energy is on the Republican side. We do have the enthusiasm advantage. You look in 2010, where the Republicans were doing very well, but they were overestimated in the polls because Obama still had a very solid approval rating. Obama had a solid approval rating in 2010, so the Democrats ended up overperforming the polls. But in 2014, he didn't have that solid approval rating anymore, so he ended. It was expected to be more of a close election that time, and it was closer. But the polls underestimated Republicans significantly in those polls, and that's what ends up happening. So now we're going to fill out the lean states. Next, we're going to talk about. Let's do Pennsylvania first. Oz is doing a very good job. He completely destroyed Fetterman in the debate, and I believe that Oz is going to win. The polls are just looking amazing. The early vote, lots of ancestral Democrats, so it's not really great to look at. It's not really looking amazing for Oz, but he's going to do good enough with independents to win. He seems to be doing very well with independents in the polls, and I do believe that with the massive election day turnout for Oz, it is going to be about a 2.25 point win for Dr. Oz in the state of Pennsylvania. Now we have 4 races remaining. Republicans can win any of them to retake the Senate, and I believe that we are going to retake the Senate. We're going to start with Nevada. So Nevada, so Republicans are up about 4 so points in most polls in Nevada. And there was a horrible report that's just like, Masto will win because I said so. And like, there was really no evidence to back it up. All the polls are pointing that this is going to be a Lake Salt win. You look in 2014, the polls underestimated Sandoval huge in the state of Nevada. And they underestimated Republicans in 2020 when we had the enthusiasm. And we have more enthusiasm in Nevada this time. So I believe that Lake Salt is going to win by about 3.5 points in the state of Nevada. Lake Salt is just doing an amazing job campaigning, and I believe that Lake Salt is going to win this race. And same thing with Masters. Masters has been surging recently, and polls actually underestimated Ducey in 2014. So you have all these polls. The red wave comes. It's going to underestimate Republicans, even in states that are not known for underestimating Republicans. Nevada, Arizona, and Georgia are not known for underestimating Republicans, but they did in 2014, and that's what happens when you give them a red wave. And next we got the state of Georgia. Georgia is also a lean Republican state. I actually just recently bumped this to lean Republican. I had a tilt, but I think Herschel is going to win on election night. He might not win on election night. It might go to a runoff. I had it going to a runoff on my election night, but now I do believe he is going to win with his surge in Trafalgar. He's up 3.5 in Trafalgar, and you can point, Trafalgar's bad in Georgia, but they fixed it. They did very well. They fixed how their polls work in Georgia. They were pretty spot on in the runoffs. At least if I know they weren't very good in the Loeffler race, but they were good in the Purdue race. They were good in the Purdue race, and even if they're all wrong by a Loeffler margin in their poll, they will Walker will still end up winning, but it won't be no runoff. I do believe Walker is going to avoid a runoff. But it is going to be a close election in the state of Georgia. And finally, New Hampshire. This is going to be the closest race of the night, most likely. We're going to be watching this for a while. I could see this going either way. I'm just going to go with my gut, and I'm going to say that Bullock is going to win in the state of New Hampshire. I believe he has been doing an amazing job campaigning. He's really focusing on the issues New Hampshireites care about. I do believe that with his campaign with Sununu being on the ballot, it is going to help Bolduc a lot in the state of New Hampshire. I could see it going everywhere either way because of the white college turnout. It is going to be bumped up a little bit, but you also have a lot of the traditional Republicans in New Hampshire that are going to turn out. I can see really any outcome happening in New Hampshire. So this is the closest race to a toss-up. I believe Bolduc is the favorite. We'll see what ends up happening, but that's my final Senate map. 54 for the Republicans, 46 for the Democrats. It is going to be a great night. Let's get to the governor map. So now we have the governor map open. So we're going to start filling out the safe states. So the website just crashed as I was saying that. So these are all the safe states. Ohio's safe. DeWine's going to win by like 28. Next we're going to, some of these states are going to end up being safe. Hawaii's safe. Maryland's safe with Westmore. He has a pretty good book, honestly. I'm forced to read it for English class. I don't know why I'm into that. Actually, Rhode Island's not safe. We'll get to that. So there's most of the safe Republican states, most of the safe states. Some other states that are going to be safe that I didn't mention. Stitt's probably going to win by 13. I feel like it's going to be a complete repeat of Oklahoma governor in 2018, where Stitt, it was expected to be closer than possible. Even LTE had it tilty, but then it was just like a 12-point win for Stitt. I think it's going to be about a 13-point win for Stitt. I think Stitt's going to do pretty well. It's not going to be great for Oklahoma, but he's going to win by a pretty solid margin in the state of Oklahoma. Reynolds is doing very well in Iowa. Seltzer has her up 17. Seltzer's been very accurate in the state of Iowa. And I believe that when everything is said and done, Reynolds is going to win by 17 points. I do think that's going to be the margin. And that is going to be a great result for Republicans. Reynolds is a great governor. I think she's going to do very well. And we have 20 more states to fill out. Alaska's also safe. Dunleavy, it could be within 10, but Dunleavy has been polling pretty well. I do believe he's going to win by a pretty solid margin. I'm not going to make an exact margin prediction, but it is going to be safe. Next, we got Texas. Texas, the early vote looks pretty good. Actually, I don't know. They don't register by party, but I know they have some flawed models, but it looks good for Republicans either way, no matter how you look at it. the polls have about like a 10-point lead for Abbott and everything. It seems like Abbott's very popular in the state of Texas. I believe that due to the Latino trends, the enthusiasm, I do believe in Texas, Republicans are going to win by about 14 points in the state of Texas. It is going to be a very good result for Republicans in Texas, and we saw Trump underestimated in Texas last year. We have more Hispanic enthusiasm this time, and I do believe the enthusiasm is going to carry us, because they did overestimate Trump in 2016, but now they have sort of more enthusiasm in the state, and we do have that enthusiasm carrying over to the midterms. Next, we got the state of Florida. The early vote is just looking amazing in Florida. I don't see DeSantis losing at all. He's going to win by about 14 points, in my opinion. I already explained this for Rubio, so I'm not going to get into too much detail. Any other safe states? It does not look like it. So now I guess I'm going to go west to east. First, we got Oregon. I'm not going to do by margin because there's just too many states. First, we got Oregon. It unfortunately seems that we're not going to get red Oregon. Tucker Carlson was not running, so unfortunately, Oregon is not going red. Just the sad how Drazen has collapsed in the polls. I really wanted to see this race go red, but I think unfortunately, when everything is said and done, Kotek will win by about a point, maybe a point and a half. Still a good result for Oregon, but it is sad that we're not getting a Republican governor in Oregon. Next, we got Nevada. I did have this likely for a little bit, but I think with the new Trafalgar poll, I'm going to bump it back down to lean. I think he's going to win by 3.5 points. I do think he'll win Clark, but he's going to narrowly win Washoe. The early vote's looking pretty good in Nevada. Lombardo being the sheriff of Clark County is going to help a good amount, and I do believe he's a popular sheriff of Clark County. I do believe he is going to win. I think with the Hispanic enthusiasm, with polls underestimating Republicans in the state, with due to it being a red wave, I do believe that when everything is said and done, Lombardo is going to win by about 3.5, maybe even 4 points when everything is said and done. So next we got the state of Arizona. I believe Lake is going to win by about almost 4. It'll be just under 4. She's going to win Maricopa County. The early vote looks pretty solid in Arizona, and I do believe that she is the favorite. She's been polling consistently well. Katie Hobbs is just an awful candidate, and this is I do believe Lake is going to win. I do believe Blake is going to win due to the red wave, and I actually do believe Republicans are being underestimated in the state of Arizona. Now, I'm going to skip New Mexico, because that is going to be one of the closest races of the night. Polis is a popular governor in Colorado. He's probably going to win pretty easy, probably about an 8-point win for Polis. This isn't really surprising. I do think people would expect him to win by more, but Polis is going to win pretty solidly. You see, guys, I'm only going to do the close states right now. I'll save the really close states for later. So next I got the state of Illinois. I think we had a poll yesterday that was like Pritzker plus 20, but we have seen a lot of polls like Emerson had it closer. Research Co. was the Pritzker plus 20 poll, but I think they're literally banned from 538 because they're so left leaning. I think that's what it was. I'm not entirely sure, but all I know is they're banned by 538, which I think is interesting. I do believe that Pritzker is going to win, but it is going to be closer, just because he doesn't really have a great approval rating. And also, Bailey has a lot of strength downstate. And also there's some coattails from Salaby. She's going to help the Senate race. She might carry Bailey over with a traditional Republican base. We'll see what ends up happening there. I think Michaels is going to win by 5 in Wisconsin. The polls are underestimating Ron Johnson, and I do believe they're also underestimating Michaels. Republicans are doing very well in Johnson. They're going to do very well in Wisconsin. They're going to win by about 5 points in this race. It's going to be close, but I do believe due to the very historic polling error in the state of Wisconsin, Michaels is going to win by 5 points. Now we have Kemp in Georgia. Kemp had some beef with Trump, but due to this beef now, a lot of Republicans are on their side just because it's closer to the election day. They got to vote Republican. They absolutely despise Stacey in the state. You know, they don't like a lot of Georgia Republicans that voted for Purdue, which really isn't that many. It was expected to be a lot more, but only like 20% voted for Purdue. They absolutely hate Stacey, and they are voting for Brian Kemp. And a lot of wine moms are voting for Brian Kemp because he stood up to Trump, even though he really didn't. It's interesting what's happening there. And oh yeah, forgot to fill these two states out. They have popular Republican governors in Vermont and New Hampshire. Got Sununu and Phil Scott. They are going to do very well. Probably going to be some of the best performers of the night, to be honest. Next, we got the state of Pennsylvania. I do believe Mastriano is going to overperform his polls, but I believe, unfortunately, Mastriano is going to end up losing, and it is going to be a very sad thing to see because he was such a great recruit, but the RGA refused to fund him. I do believe that because Shapiro does have a historic sort of, he's usually underestimated at the polls. Mastriano didn't really get much name recognition, but when they see he's a Republican, when all the Republicans that are voting for Mehmet Oz in the state of Pennsylvania, I do believe it's going to be under 4%. Trafalgar has Shapiro down 4. It is going to be a close race in Pennsylvania. I believe Shapiro is going to win by 4. Unfortunately, Mastriano probably not going to do very well in the suburbs. He might help a lot he might do very well in the rural areas, but unfortunately, the suburbs are going to be very harsh to him, and he is going to end up losing. It's going to be a very sad thing for Pennsylvania. About a 4-point win for Shapiro. Not a terrible result for Mastriano. It's going to be a big polling over performance, but it's a sad race. It's sad the RGA really just gave up on that race there. Next, we got the state of New York. It's going to be a lot closer than expected. I believe that Huckel's going to win by about 4.5 points. Zeldin has really been hammering her on crime, and she has made a lot of gaffes. The early vote is not looking good at all for Democrats in the state. Obviously, this is still a Biden plus 20 state, but it is going to be insane if the Democrats end up losing the state of New York, a state voting for Biden by 20 points. Zeldin's been doing amazing. We'll see what ends up happening in the state of New York, but things are, it's going to be close, but unfortunately, I don't believe Zeldin has what it takes to win. I really wish he could win, but unfortunately, I don't think he's going to. Finally, we got Rhode Island. Rhode Island is likely D. Haven't really got much polling out there. I think we had one McKee plus 10 poll, but that was before the debate. Callis did pretty well in the debate. She doesn't really have the most name recognition, but I do believe she is running a very good campaign, and I do believe she is going to get within 10, and unfortunately going to be an 8-point win for McKee probably. We don't really know too much about the state, but it seems like McKee is the favorite just based on Rhode Island's partisan lean, although he is an unpopular governor. Next, we got Maine. Pretty much anything could happen. I have Mills winning by 3. There is a historic polling miss in the state of Maine. You had Susan Collins, who was expected to lose by a lot in Maine, but she ended up winning, and it's not impossible that could happen again, but I think it's unlikely. I do think Mills is going to win. I think LePage will get closer than many pundits expected, but still, it is not going to be enough in my opinion. It could be a shocker flip. I wouldn't be too surprised, but it could shock the media if LePage ends up winning. We'll see what ends up happening, but unfortunately, I think Mills is going to end up winning by 3 points in Maine. So now we have the true toss-up races. These are all the races that I believe are going to go by under 1%, starting with New Mexico. I am the least sure about this one of all the 3 on the list. I do believe we have the Hispanic enthusiasm. Ronchetti is a well-known weatherman. I do believe he can do very well in the suburbs in the state of New Mexico. The early vote doesn't look too good, but I'm not sure too much about the early vote just because there are a lot of ancestral Democrats in the state of New Mexico. So, this could really go either way. Grisham is not a popular governor, but Ronchetti is pretty popular. He almost won a Senate. He did very well in the Senate race. He overperformed Trump by 4 points in the Senate race in 2020 because he did very well with sort of the suburban wine mom vote, and she is going to. I do believe he's going to win, but this is going to be one of the closest governor races of the night. Next, we got the state of Kansas. I do believe Schmidt is going to win. It is going to be a very close election in the state of Kansas. I believe Schmidt is going to win. I know Kelly is leading in Emerson, but I do believe that their Moran plus 21 poll is a bit off. I think I'll win more like 25 probably. I do believe Schmidt is going to win due to the momentum in the red wave momentum in the state of Kansas. I do believe he is going to end up winning in Kansas. It's going to be a interesting night, but I do believe Schmidt has what it takes to win. Next, we got Minnesota. Jensen's a man nominee, but he's doing okay in the state of Minnesota. He's doing very well in his campaign, and I do believe it's going to be close. Minnesota is really hard to predict what's going to happen with their polls. They did underestimate Trump in 2016, but they did overestimate Trump in 2020 by a good amount. So we really don't know what's going to happen in Minnesota. Anything going to happen. I think it's going to be a close race, but we do not know. Our final state is Michigan, my home state. I believe Dixon is going to win. I nailed the primary in Michigan. I nailed pretty much everything in Michigan in the primary. And I believe that Whitmer is going to lose. I believe that just due to the, you had this poll last night, Trafalgar has Dixon up 0.3%. It is going to be a very close election in Michigan, but I do believe Dixon's going to win by about 0.4%. They actually, Trafalgar actually overestimated or underestimated James in 2018. They actually underestimated the Republicans in midterm elections last year. I know they did I know this was their biggest miss in favor of Trump, but they actually are known for, or overestimating. They're known for underestimating Republicans in midterm years. I do believe that's what's going to happen in Michigan. I do believe that Dixon has a lot of late momentum coming on her side. Whitmer is just, the turnout is just completely off. Have you guys seen this? The turnout in Detroit, they're expecting it to be about 28 to 33%, a completely awful number for Democrats in Detroit. I do believe Whitmer is going to lose due to low Detroit turnout. And Dixon's late surge, she's doing better in funding, she's getting more advertising, and I do believe that when everything is said and done, Dixon is going to be the next governor of Michigan. That is my final map for the governors. 31 for the Republicans and 19 for the Democrats. Anything can happen, but if you want this map to happen, make sure to get out and vote for Republicans downstate or up and down the ballot. It is very important. You need to make sure that the Republicans end up winning the Senate, so you don't have 2 more years of high gas prices. There's really just so many reasons to vote Republican. Honestly, you can do whatever you want, but I recommend voting Republican. So have a nice day. That's my prediction. Good night.